there's no reason we can't make this century another American century. But it's going to take a new direction. It will take new leadership in Washington. It will take a real change.
Barron Trump walked into that room thinking he was about to dismantle Barack Obama's legacy in front of a live audience. He had the statistics, he had the posture, he had the name. What he didn't have, what none of them ever have, was a plan for what happens when the man you're trying to trap refuses to fight you back. The auditorium carried the particular weight of places where serious things are said by serious people. Warm lighting pressed down on rows of polished chairs. The ceiling stretched high above the audience, the kind of ceiling that makes voices sound important before a single word is spoken. Students sat shoulder to shoulder, notebooks open, phones half raised. Cameras were positioned at careful distances, capturing everything without disturbing anything. The room smelled faintly of old wood and fresh ambition. Academics whispered to each other near the side walls. Colleagues adjusted glasses and straightened ties. There was a sense, shared silently among everyone present, that tonight's exchange would not stay inside these walls. Barron Trump entered without announcement and didn't need one. He was impossible to miss, long-limbed, unhurried, moving with the unconscious ease of a man who has grown up watching power operate from the inside. He found his seat and stretched out, legs extended, arms relaxed along the armrests. His posture didn't announce itself, it simply occupied space. He wasn't watching the room. He was reading it, tracking reactions, measuring applause, cataloging the way people position themselves around the person not yet on stage. He was, in every visible way, completely calm. Barack Obama arrived to a wave of genuine warmth. The applause that rose when he approached the podium was the kind that builds before it peaks. Steady, full, the sound of a room greeting someone it already trusts. He moved to the stand without hurry, settled behind the microphone, and smiled. Not the wide smile of performance, the quiet one, the one that means he's paying attention. Basically, Obama said, scanning the room with that unhurried gaze, I'm here to announce that we're building Iron Man. Laughter, immediate, easy, relieved. Barron Trump smiled too, but his was different. Charm, he noted, was predictable. Predictable things are manageable. What he had come here to find was something else. A crack, a hesitation, a moment when the polish slipped and something unscripted fell through. He was still looking for it when Obama began speaking about policy. The early portion of the session moved cleanly. Obama spoke with the comfortable fluency of someone who had delivered 10,000 versions of this particular address. Measured sentences, well-timed pauses, the efficient navigation of complex ideas toward accessible conclusions. The audience relaxed into it. Barron Trump did not relax. His fingers rested lightly against the cover of a notebook on his knee. His eyes stayed forward. He had not come to listen in the ordinary sense. He had come to find the right moment. When the moderator opened the floor to questions, Barron Trump's hand went up before the sentence was finished. Several heads turned as he rose. His height alone drew the eye, but it was the steadiness in his movement that held attention. He didn't shift or rush. He stepped forward with the deliberate calm of someone who has rehearsed this moment enough times that the nerves have burned away and only the intention remains. He addressed Obama with full, formal respect. His question was constructed carefully. Statistics about economic performance during Obama's presidency, laid out with precision, followed by a pointed suggestion that the policies of that era had promised considerably more than they ultimately delivered. Let me start with the economy, Obama responded, his hands settling on the podium, and a basic fact. The United States of America right now has the strongest, most durable economy in the world. Applause moved through the room in a clean wave. But Barron Trump held his position. His tone remained respectful, measured even. But there was an edge underneath it, sharpened by preparation and pointed by intention. He wasn't being rude. He was being precise. And precision in the right room can feel more threatening than aggression. Participants exchanged glances. People leaned slightly toward Barron, drawn in by the change in atmospheric pressure. When he finished, Barron went quiet. He held Obama's gaze directly, not aggressively, but deliberately, as if the silence itself were part of the question. For a moment, the room held its breath. Obama did not rush to fill it. He placed both palms flat on the podium and looked at Barron. Not as an opponent, not with irritation, but with the calm attention of a man deciding how honest to be. Several seconds passed. Then Obama smiled. Not the easy smile from the opening, something quieter, and asked Barron to repeat the number and cite his source. Just that. No counter-argument, no rebuttal, just a request for the foundation. Something shifted in the room, not loudly, not dramatically. The way light changes when a cloud moves. The same space, different texture. Barron repeated the figure cleanly and referenced the report he had built his argument on. Obama nodded. "This is a number I hear quite often," he said. His voice was even, carrying neither warmth nor coldness. "And I understand why the question gets asked." He stepped away from the podium, not backward, sideward, like a man choosing a different room in the same house. And with that movement, the architecture of the exchange changed completely. Obama began describing what he had actually inherited, not with drama, not with accusation, with the flat, patient specificity of someone laying out a map: financial collapse, frozen credit markets, businesses cutting simultaneously, hundreds of thousands of jobs disappearing before a single policy decision could take effect. He referenced the numbers plainly, not as a defense, but as context. "We've already lost 750,000 jobs this year," he noted. Some projections had unemployment reaching 8% before the next calendar year. He did not raise his voice once. Smartphones that had been held aloft across the room slowly descended, not because anyone told the audience to put them down, because what was unfolding in front of them was more compelling than anything a clip could preserve. Obama spoke about timing, how growth sometimes begins invisibly before it registers, how stability, when it works, often looks like nothing happening, because the alternative that was prevented left no visible evidence of itself. He spoke in the language of ordinary life. Families trying to keep homes, small businesses trying to stay open, workers in industries that no longer existed trying to find their footing in ones that barely did yet. He acknowledged mistakes, not as concession, not as weakness, as honesty. He named decisions that, with distance, could have been improved, policies that required patience no political cycle was designed to reward. He said it all without apology and without defensiveness. And in doing so, dismantled the frame that Barron's question had relied upon, because the trap had been built for a man who would defend himself. Obama wasn't defending, he was explaining, and explanation doesn't have the same weak points as defense. Barron Trump felt the shift before he could name it. People who had been leaning back were now leaning forward. The energy in the room had changed its shape, from sharp to wide, from confrontational to curious. The sharp question Barron had carried to the front of that room no longer had anything to press against. Obama turned his gaze back to Barron, not as an opponent, not as someone to be corrected, but as a participant. "So when we talk about whether something worked," Obama said, his voice dropping just slightly, "we have to be clear about what we're measuring and why." The sentence landed without noise. Barron swallowed. His posture, still composed, still upright, shifted in a way that only someone watching closely would catch. A subtle rearrangement. The confidence was still there, but something underneath it had been quietly rearranged. Obama asked a question back, gently, directly. Which outcome mattered most? Economic growth, wage stability, or opportunity? Barron hesitated, not because he didn't have an answer, but because the conversation had moved past the angle he had prepared for. After a brief pause, he answered honestly. "Opportunity," he said. "Fairness. Innovation." Obama nodded, almost pleased by the sincerity, and built on the answer rather than redirecting it. He described how policies balance competing goals, how short-term growth sometimes risks long-term stability, how leadership means navigating uncertainty without the guarantee of visible results. "Anyone claiming that America's economy is in decline," Obama said, his voice calm and final, "is peddling fiction." The applause that followed was steady, not partisan, not loud. The sound of a room that had been genuinely moved by something it hadn't expected to witness. Barron Trump sat with his elbows on his knees, absorbing the exchange, rather than preparing a rebuttal. The notebook on his knee remained closed. When the session ended, conversations formed in clusters across the room. People replayed the moment in lowered voices. Barron lingered near the back, watching as others moved toward Obama. He was, for the first time since walking in, invisible. Strangely, he didn't mind. The warmth that had risen in his face during the exchange had cooled into something else. Not embarrassment, not defeat, but a restlessness that meant something had been rearranged. Obama was moving toward the exit when their eyes met across the room. No smile, no mockery, just a small, steady nod. The kind that passes between two people who have understood something together that doesn't require words. Barron nodded back. Outside, walking through the corridor alone, he found himself replaying it. Not the moment the question had gone sideways, but the moment before. The way Obama had paused, the way he had chosen to widen rather than deflect, the calmness that made the room follow him without being asked. Barron Trump had walked into that auditorium believing that confidence meant having the sharpest argument in the room. He walked out understanding something more complicated. That the most powerful thing Obama had done, The move that had dissolved every angle of the trap was simply refusing to pretend he was anything other than exactly what he was. What you just witnessed wasn't a debate. It was a lesson about the difference between performing strength and actually having it, about the gap between a prepared attack and an honest answer, about what happens when a young man built on a famous name walks into a room and encounters a different kind of power entirely. If this exchange made you think, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, because the next conversation is already forming, and you don't want to arrive late. Some lessons only land once. This was one of them.